Today we are going to solve equations and check their answers. So we've got some subtraction, multiplication, division, and addition to use in order to solve some of these problems. So let's take a look at our first one. It says that g minus 19 equals negative 21. So we're going to do an opposite operation to solve this. So the first step here is to add 19 to both sides. See, I'm adding 19 to cancel out the negative 19, so I isolate the variable g. So when I add 19 to the negative 21, I have to be really careful on what I'm supposed to do here, because do I add or subtract? Well, they're opposite in sign, so you want to subtract. So when I subtract, I end up at 2, but now is it positive or negative? Well, there's more negatives than positives, so the answer is negative 2. But let's go back and check. Let's take that negative 2 and substitute it in for g. So I have negative 2 minus 19, and that should equal negative 21. So here let's add the opposite. Add the opposite, and see the two negative signs mean I add, and I do get negative 21 equals negative 21. So it checks out, so it's good. So that is our answer. Let's take a look at our next one. It's q plus 6 equals negative 2, so I'm going to do the opposite of a positive 6. I'm going to take 6 away. So I go ahead and do that, and that leaves me with this q equals negative 8. Negative 8 because I have to add the opposite. See how they're the same sign? So that means I'm going to end up adding. But before I circle it and call it my answer, let's go ahead and check it. So let's take that negative 8 and let's substitute it back in for q. So negative 8 plus 6 equals negative 2. Sure enough, these are opposite in sign, so I subtract more negatives than positives. So yes, negative 2 does equal negative 2. It is the correct answer. So in all of these problems, you can check to see if you're doing it right just by substituting your answer back into the equation. So the difference here is that we have the variable on the right-hand side of the equal sign, but we do the same work. Here I'm going to add 15 to both sides, and that gives me 28 equals x. Well, that's the same thing as saying x equals 28. Doesn't matter which way you write it. Now let's see if it's right. Let's take the 28, put it in for x. So 13 equals 28 minus 15. Well, when I do that subtraction, do it up here, 28 minus 15, I do get 8 minus 5 is 3, 2 minus 1 is 1, so 13. So when the two numbers agree, that means yes, it is the right answer. Let's take a look at our next one. Here we've got something a little different. 9 is right next to h. That means that we're multiplying 9 by h. So let's do the opposite of multiplying, which is division. So when I divide, the 9's cancel out, so I'm just left with h. And when I do the division, I got to be careful on the side here. Negative divided by a positive makes a negative. 36, 9 into 36 goes 4 times. So negative 4, but let's check it. Let's substitute it back in and see if it makes sense. So 9 times negative 4 does equal negative 36, and sure enough, we did it correctly. So yes, that is the correct answer. Let's take a look at our next one. Again, negative 3 right next to b means that we're multiplying. So we're going to do an opposite operation. I'm going to divide by negative 3, and since we have the negative signs canceling out, 3's canceling out, we're left with b by itself. Here, negative 3 goes into positive 36, negative time, because one negative makes a negative when we multiply or divide. 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 6 2 times. So negative 12, well, let's check. Negative 3 times negative 12, so I substituted negative 12 in for this b here, equals positive 36. Yes, two negatives make a positive. 3 times 12 does make 36, so yes, that is correct. Taking a look at our next one, we got the u on the right-hand side. We're going to divide by negative 4. When I divide, the two negatives make a positive, so I'm left with a positive, and 4 goes into 125 times. And so we're left with u equals 25. And again, you can write that as u equals 25 this way. Either way works. So let's check. Let's go ahead and put the number in place of the variable. So we have negative 4 times by 25. And sure enough, negative 4 times 25 does make negative 100. So that is true. Let's take a look at our last set of problems here of these type. Here it's division. D divided by 5. Well, the opposite of division is to multiply. So I'm going to multiply by 5 on the left side, and if I do it to the left, I got to do it to the right. So you see the 5's will cross cancel here, so I'm left with D equals negative 35. And so let's check and see if we did it right. Let's go ahead and substitute the negative 35 in place of D. So negative 35 divided by 5, yes, that does make negative 7. One negative makes a negative when you multiply or divide. So negative 7 does equal negative 7. It checks out. We've got a right answer. So that's the nice thing, is you always know you're doing them right by just checking your work. Same thing here. This is C divided by 4, so we're going to multiply by 4. Think of it as 4 over 1. You can see how those 4's cross cancel. Do the same thing on the other side. So C equals negative 80. Let's go ahead and check it. Negative 80 divided by 4. Yes, that does equal negative 20. And so those two do equal, so we do have the right answer. And the last one of this type, we're going to multiply by negative 9 because it's S divided by negative 9. So the opposite operation is multiplication. Well, S equals negative 81. Is 9 times negative 9 does equal negative 81. Let's check the answer. Negative 81 divided by negative 9. Two negatives cancel. 9 into 81 goes 9 times. So 9 does equal 9. It does check out, so we know it's the right answer. Last three problems here deal with writing an equation and then solving. So let's go ahead and try this first one. It talks about the difference of a number and f. The difference of a number f and negative 5 is 20. So the difference means that we're going to end up subtracting. And so we're going to subtract the two numbers that we see first. So a number f and negative 5. So let's do that. F minus negative 5. That's the way it's got to go. So when you see the word difference, you're just going to go right in the order that they have. Is this word here tells us that we're going to put an equal sign in place of it, and it is 20. So now we're ready to solve. So the way we solve this is we'll add the opposite here. Make sure you add the opposite, because now it says that we have to subtract 5, because minus negative means plus positive. So make sure you add the opposite on that, and then take away the 5 from both sides. We're left with f equals 15. So 15 is the number. When we go ahead and substitute 15 back in for this f, we have 15, and then minus negative 5 does equal 20. Minus negative makes plus positive. 20 equals 20. So it does check out. Now when they use the words 5 less than, that means you're taking 5 away from something else. 5 less than a number t. So it's t minus 5. Is means equals. That's where that equal sign comes in, negative 65. So the key is, when you see the words less than, this tells us that we're taking 5 away from something. So now we go ahead and solve. So we're going to do an opposite operation here. We're going to add 5 to all sides. You notice that we have opposite signs there, so we have to subtract. Negative 60 is our answer. More negatives than positives. So you can check your work. Negative 60 in for t. So negative 60 minus 5 equals negative 65. So yes, add the opposite there. Same sign, so we add. And yes, they do check out, so we know we've done it right. Here it talks about the product. Product means that we're going to multiply, or times. And so it's product of a number and 5. So we'll write it with 5 first, then the number. Typically, you could write it n times 5. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But when we write a number multiplied by a variable, typically we put the number first. That's called our coefficient. Is, again, means equals. And we have the number 10. It equals 10. So we're ready to solve. So we're just doing an opposite operation, dividing by 2. And now we have n equals 5. Let's just check it. And we've got a 5. Oops. I was thinking of the answer, I guess, as I was doing that problem. So let's fix that real quick. And so here we're dividing by 5. That makes more sense. We've got now n equals 2 as the answer. And so let's go ahead and check it and make sure it works. Because when I got that last answer, I worked really fast and did that, and I made an error. And if I went ahead and checked, I actually did that multiplication. I saw 5 times 5 makes 25, not 10. So I knew I did something wrong. So here it is, 5 in 5 times n, which n is 2, so that's why I wrote the 2, should equal 10. 10 equals 10? Yes, now I know I did it right, so now I can go ahead and circle that answer. Well, those are types of problems you'll see on tonight's homework. Good luck.